Hey, yo, what's up, YouTube, man? It's your boy, Ashton Jackson, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about 5 Cowboy players that I believe will improve in 2025, because last year in 2024 was a down season for everybody, but there are 5 players that I believe that just had terrible luck, terrible situations, and that I believe will have a better 2025. And no, I'm not going to be talking about Dak Prescott because that would be the low-hanging fruit. I want to dig deeper and just talk about actual football, So, before we hop into the video, I would appreciate if you guys would like the video, subscribe if you're new, comment and share my video with anyone who you think will enjoy my content. Please and thank you. Straight into it. The start off the list at number 5 is going to be, for me, DaRon Bland. DaRon Bland was, the best defensive back in 2023, in my opinion. He set a record for most pick sixes in a single season. He was like top 3, top 2 when it came to just the cornerback position in terms of taking the ball away. He's had a phenomenal season. For sure, he definitely had some downs, but he definitely had a whole lot more ups than he had downs. But I just feel like the way in which that we ended that season and then going into 2024, he was going into a make-or-break year, in my opinion, trying to at least put up a third consecutive year in which he played really well, because his first year when he had to step in when Jordan Lewis went down, he had 5 interceptions. And then we needed to rely on him even more after Anthony Brown tore his Achilles December 4th, 2023 against the Indianapolis Colts. And then we had to go, that had happened. He stepped up in 2022, stepped up in 2023, was a big player when Trayvon Diggs went down. And we were expecting him to play really well next to Trayvon Diggs, because Trayvon Diggs was coming back off of his ACL injury. And we wanted Bland and Trayvon Diggs to be back and to be playing with each other, but it just didn't happen that way. Pause. So I think DaRon Bland is going to come back under Matt Eberflus. I think that our defensive line is going to be a lot better under Aaron White-Cotton. I think Donovan Ezra-Rock is going to have a really good year, being your 3rd best pass rusher. I think Dante Fowler is your 2nd best, and of course, I believe, and I know Micah Parsons is your best pass rusher. I think Osa Odighizuwa, who just got a contract, is going to be really great as well. I think Mike Smith is going to have a really good year this year, especially because this is the type of year in years in which that you expect your defensive tackle to step up, is their 3rd year. But after this year, depending on how this year goes for Molly Smith, it's either we're going to be looking for another defensive tackle in the first 3 rounds, or since we don't have a 3rd round pick, the first 2 rounds, or definitely somewhere in the 4th round. But we're definitely going to be looking for a defensive tackle if things don't pan out. But I believe we're going to be playing a lot better. I think DaRon Bland is going to be really good. I think DaRon Bland is going to play nickel corner for the Dallas Cowboys. That's what I truly believe, because he can play that Kyler Gordon type of role for us, where we're going to have DaRon Bland possibly blitzing, roaming. We're going to have him do so many things within the slot that Kyler Gordon was able to do under Matt Eberflus. And I think DaRon Bland is going to be a damn good player for us, which he's already shown us that he can be. We just need that to unlock even further and be more of a consistent player. So, number 4, the player that I believe that was going to ascend and was going to have a better year last year if he didn't have that knee injury, which sidelined him for like 2 months, and that was Marshawn Kneeland. We drafted him 2nd round out of Western Michigan. We saw him to be that next Chauncey Golston / DeMarcus Lawrence type of replacement, where he comes in, he's a rundown player. He's very physical in the run game. He finished in the 99th percentile at Western Michigan in college football as in terms of being one of the best run-stopping defensive ends. He's a really good player, really physical type of player. I really like Marshawn Kneeland, but I thought he was going to ascend once that Pittsburgh Steelers game had started, because, we had lost DeMarcus Lawrence. He was gone for the year. He had a stress fracture in his foot. He had some sort of foot injury in which he sustained versus the New York Giants on that Thursday Night Football. Then he was gone for he was out for the rest of the season. He didn't come back. And then, Marshawn Kneeland has his game against the Steelers, and then like the first quarter, within like the 2nd or 3rd defensive drive, he steps the wrong way. He's on a stretcher. He's out for a very long time. Doesn't come back. It's like late November, early December was when Marshawn Kneeland came back. But I think Marshawn Kneeland is going to be a really good player for the Dallas Cowboys. And I think, again, he's another person that we need on the way to having a successful season, or on our way to have a really good first season underneath Brian Schottenheimer. We need Marshawn Nealon to step up and be that really good guy that we can count on when in terms of when we need to stop the run, when we need him to make a play. I really do feel that Marshawn Nealon is going to come in. He's going to be able to do his job and do it well, in my opinion. So we're going to find out what Marshawn Nealon is going to be this year. It's his second year. I do believe that, it takes a couple of years for these trench players to really get going. And I think Marshawn Nealon, the only gripe I had against him last year was I just wanted him to be better in the pass rush department. But I already said that pre-draft, that's what it was going to take for him to ascend as a player, was of course the play strength, playing from Western Michigan and playing in the pros. But then not only that, developing his pass rush skills, because I feel like that needed to be improved upon for him to be a player that we can really never take off the field. Number 3, my third player that I'm talking about is Tyler Guyton. I think Tyler Guyton had a terrible season. He'll even tell you that. There's interviews in which that, when people talk to Tyler Guyton, he told himself he was very accountable, holds himself accountable, has a really good camp around him, and a really good set of people around him. He understands and was self-aware enough to tell you that he did not have a really good season, which I do believe he did not have a good season. But you got to think about him transitioning from playing right tackle to left tackle. But then not only that, he wasn't born to play the position. He played defensive tackle in college, part-time that, and then they had him everywhere around the offensive room. Then they moved him to defense and everything like that. So he's really just been big and just been athletic his entire life. He just never been an offensive lineman like Terrence Steele has been, like Tyler Smith, Booker, Zach Martin. Think about all the offensive linemen that have played really well for us just in the past 10, 12, 15 years. And you compare that to what Tyler Guyton is. All those guys that we drafted in the first round, outside of Tyler Guyton, they were born and bred to be offensive linemen. Tyler Guyton was not. He was born and bred to be an athlete. So he just so happened to be 6'8", 330 pounds. He can move his feet phenomenally for his size. For his size. But I believe that Tyler Guyton will have a better year. I do believe that with Connor Riley and Clayton Adams, I just think that we already talked about this before in this pre-draft presser. And when I was talking about, Tyler Guyton, I viewed it as a 2025 pick. I didn't have the expectation of him to come in and replace a future Hall of Famer and Tyron Smith. That was never my expectation. I wanted Tyler Guyton to come in and learn and get some experience. That's why I was like, hey, let's go get David Bakhtiari, one of these veteran offensive tackles off the free agency market in 2024. That's where I was. So that's why Tyler Guyton come in and learned underneath somebody. But I do believe that Tyler Guyton season, and he'll be able to play a lot more games. The coaches I just named, we're going to be able to get the best out of him. And you just look at Clayton Adams' track record. Just look at last year, Yes, they had Paris Johnson, in which they drafted very high. They had Will Hernandez. They had a center in which I believe was undrafted or was drafted late day 3. They have a lot of unproven guys on that offensive line in Arizona, and Clayton Adams was able to get the best out of them. I think if you're able to get 3 out of your 5 offensive linemen are selected in the first round, 4 of the 5 are selected in the top 80 of the NFL draft. The top 80 selections, in the NFL draft. And then you also have a 5th offensive lineman, all 5 that are improving and getting better at their game. And which leads me to my next point, number 2, Terrence Steele. We've been looking for Terrence Steele to get back to 2022 Terrence Steele when he played next to a very dominant and, again, another future Hall of Fame right guard and Zach Martin. I believe that, again, offensive linemen, they're better when they're one as opposed to them being 5 individuals, right? So I feel that when the offensive line is able to move people all at once, I think it becomes it's a really poetry in motion when you look at it. I think Terrence Steele was such a great player because Zach Martin was really great. Shout out to Vosh Lombardi. He showed film and everything like that. And even when I seen that as well, you're a lot better when you have better people around you. When you're spotty at right guard, when that same person is there like Zach Martin, but he isn't playing the same like how he was in prior years, you're possibly not going to look the same. And that's what it was with Terrence Steele. Terrence Steele has been looking really spotty the past few years because right guard hasn't been the best, right? So I think Terrence Steele is going to be better because I believe that Tyler Booker is going to be better. I do believe the coaching staff is going to be better. I believe that our offense will be a lot more dynamic and it won't be as anemic as it was last year. I do feel that we're going to be a lot better for when it comes to the offensive line play. But we really need our tackles to be great, because I have full confidence in our interior of our offensive line. From left guard to right guard, I feel completely safe within my front three offensive linemen. It's my tackles that we have the most questions about, in which we're looking for them to be their best, right? Last player but not least, but the number one person that I believe will improve the most out of the other four I just named for me is going to be Jake Ferguson. Mainly in large in part because I feel like the offensive line is going to be better. We're going to have more time to throw the ball. I do think that we'll actually have a running game, and that a run game that people will have to respect. I don't need a fearful running game. I would like to have a fearful running game. That's why I wanted to trade for a guy like a Brace Hall. That's why I wanted to sign J.K. Dobbins. That's why I wanted Saquon or Josh Jacobs. When those stars and those were available to you in 2024, we didn't contact any of them. But I feel that our offensive line is going to be better to pass block and run block. I do feel like our running backs are going to be able to give you something to do. I do feel like CeeDee Lamb's going to come back, and he's going to look to have a better season than what he had last year, even though he was a Pro Bowler, 1,200 yards and everything like that. I think George Pickens is looking for another great year, because George Pickens is looking to get a contract and trying to create himself generational wealth. I think your third wide receiver is going to be either between Cavante Turpin, Jonathan Mingo, Jalen Tolbert, a rotation of those guys. But I think your third best weapon on your offense is going to be Jake Ferguson. And the reason why I feel like he's going to eat is, one, because it's his contract year. And then also, we were looking for him to be a really good tight end last year, which I believe he was going to be had he not had the season which he had. The sprained MCL, which he suffered week 1 versus the Cleveland Browns down the right sideline when he was trying to jump over somebody. He misstepped, sprained his MCL. He was gone for about a week. Then he had that concussion in which he suffered Monday night against the Houston Texans, and he was gone, and that really messed him up a lot. So that had happened, but I think with the presence of George Pickens, the presence of a healthy Dak Prescott, the presence of a more determined and a player that's looking to self-improve himself in George Pickens, I feel that, again, we remember what happened when Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb was here, in which you had to play too high against the Dallas Cowboys. I think we're getting back to that, where we have two wide receivers that are finally in their primes, and you're going to have to respect it. And I believe when you're playing that cover 2 type of defense, not attack the middle of the defense when you're playing that cover 2, I believe that seam shot is going to be open for a guy like Jake Ferguson. I think Dak Prescott and Jake Ferguson are at their best when they're throwing that seam ball and they're working in tandem. I believe that Dak Prescott is the top quarterback in this league. And we saw that in 2023 when he was last healthy and he last had an offense that actually made some sense, in my opinion. I think Jake Ferguson's going to have the best year because, again, you have to pay attention to CD. You're going to have to pay attention to George Pickens. Pay attention to Cavante Turpin, who's one of the fastest players in the league. Jalen Tolbert, who's a really good 3, as opposed to him being a wide receiver 1 or a wide receiver 2. I think Jonathan Mingo can arguably have one of his better careers here because he'll actually have a quarterback that can actually get him the football. And then I believe that we are going to have a better run game, in my opinion. The other 4 players I'm going to talk about, which I already did, 2, Terrence Steele, 3, Tyler Guyton, 4, Marshawn Nealon, 5, Deron Bland. Those are the 5 players in which I believe is going to have a really good year. So that's about it for the video. Hope you guys have a nice day. Stay safe, stay blessed. Bye.